or have studied agriculture or have been watching the show this past month or so, you will know why the state of your soil is important, why it has a direct link to your crops performance, how healthy your crops are, among many other factors. Now, while talking about soil science earlier, we mentioned how pH has an impact on soil today. On Business Center, we shall be looking at organic matter and how it is important in your soil. So therefore today we'll be talking about organic matter and how it is important in your soil. But first, let's take a look at how agricultural news at this hour. Now, the Ministry of Tourism has projected that the revival of the tourism sector to the 2019 figures is set to 2024. The first half of this year has seen Kenya receive over 300,000 foreigners, majority visiting friends and family, while 100,000 being tourists, as the sector gears towards recovery. However, Tourism CS Najib Balala believes that the recovery still depends on the vaccination drive. With the ministry having allocated 50,000 COVID-19 vaccines to stakeholders, the CS, who was speaking during the launch of the Magical Kenya Health Protocol 2021 this morning, warned that both registered and non-registered establishments that float health protocols will have their licenses withdrawn.
2021 is almost ending, and the crisis of, again, quarantine and the Delta variant has complicated it. We believe still tourism will trickle in, and we have seen now during the month of July and August, and particularly the countries that have vaccinated their people are the ones going to move faster to come in. So we need to target those countries, and those are three major countries. Mainly is USA, UK, and China. These are countries that have done major vaccination for their population, and those are the people who will be moving out sooner than the others. That's why we want to be sure that even Kenya, they get the vaccines and they be vaccinated so that when visitors come in, we will be safer. But 2022, again, will be a positive year. We hope nothing erratic can come like the Delta variant, and the vaccine supply will be much better. 2023 will be a recovery year, and full recovery and back to bouncing to new targets will be 2024.
We would like to urge our members to please continue observing these protocols, and when it is time to observe the curfew rules, we are telling our members, please observe, let's not have anyone breaking these curfews.
Now, the process of leasing out the assets of the troubled Mumias Sugar Company has kicked off. Receiver Manager PVR Rao commenced the process to lease out the firm after a fresh directive by Senate's Agriculture Committee last month, which sought to instill transparency in the lease-out process following uproar by stakeholders, including sugarcane farmers. The Receiver Manager has invited fresh bids from investors, with those interested given until end of this month to submit their bids. The leasing process is expected to resuscitate the former sugar milling giant through the modernization of key infrastructure and efficient management. KCB Group placed the factory under receivership in 2019 after sinking into debt. Moving on, 10 member counties of the Central Kenya Economic Bloc have agreed to form a free trade area to grow the region's 2.7 trillion shillings economy by 5% in the medium term. The objective is to raise the market share of goods and services originating from within the bloc to grow the region's trade by 130 billion shillings to begin with.
We're starting a process to fulfill one of the objectives of CEREB, which is a Central Kenya Region Economic Bloc.
So what does the resident of each of these counties stand to gain once this is set up and running?
Okay, I'll say a number of things.
One,
the if you manufacture in any CEREB county, our target is that you only pay one license, which is a single business permit within your resident county, and that you then be exempted from paying distribution fees in any of the other 9 counties. effectively, if you are manufacturing in Nanyuki, it will take you 300 meters to exit the Laikipia border. And here you will charge you 10,000 shillings. So it's very expensive, particularly for small businesses.
Right.
Given that these counties earn revenue for charging these levies and fees, what will there be compensation for the loss of revenue?
Yes.
Effectively, because you see, the county where the manufacturer is resident already is earning
Yes.
the single business permit, and we do think there is room for a conversation on either granting each other benefits on reciprocity basis.
That I have lost revenues in this way, and this is how we are able to make up for that.
Which means that, for instance, in Nyandarua and Laikipia, we talk Kiambu, Nakuru, look at what we are losing. So would you grant us something else? And it just doesn't have to just to be compensation in terms of fees. Like, for instance, it may merit that Kiambu would give preferential procurement of products from Nakuru and from Nyandarua and Laikipia. So
and that you mentioned that, maybe if I could interrupt you, you talk about policies for this particular investments, common investments policy.
Yes.
When it happens by February 2022, it will be a few months before the current administrations are phased out. So depending on whether the authorities come back into office or their term is out, will this particular idea outlive this administration?
Oh, certainly, certainly. The reason why you legislate is you keep it, is a firm. It has a full force of the law. And then what then happened is that a new administration will have to go back to the assembly to change that.
Would this initiative also spread into infrastructure in terms of roads? Can counties come together, say, you build up to here and up to here, so we link our counties?
Oh, certainly. I mean, particularly for roads that are under the county, I mean, that should be possible. Because, see, what has happened is that, as I mentioned, there are a couple of objectives that are CEREB. So the trade and investment policy or program is just one of them. Infrastructure, joint infrastructure development is one of them.
Right.
And some of these are low-hanging fruits. Now, what we like to see is that any transport circle, say a Matatu circle, that has a single business permit in Kiambu ought to be allowed to ferry passengers anywhere within CEREB. Twin K has its headquarters in Yeritown.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yes.
But they carry passengers across the board. So on a reciprocal basis, they should not be barred.
The block is estimated at 2.7 trillion an economy.
That's correct. So
how much are we?
Our target is to grow. Thanks a lot, Rosemary. 2.7 trillion, that was our estimate. Out of that, our target is that, and I think the target that was set at the workshop is to grow the intra-CEREB trade by 5%. And we're really looking at about 130 billion per year. And that's a big market.
Well, that's it for agricultural news today. But remember, we are speaking about organic matter and its importance in soil. Before we go for a short break, I'll leave you with the markets update. But after the break, we'll have Bernard Ndungu, who is the general manager for Daily Africa. He is here to just dig deeper into organic matter's importance in soil, and is going to tell us more about this. But first, we are going to go on a short break. But remember, our question of the day today, let me remind you, does organic matter have any effect on soil color? That is our question of the day. Does organic matter have any effect on soil color? Remember to send us your comments. We are live on all our digital platforms. We'll read some of these comments as we continue with the show. And remember to tell us where you're watching us from, and we will read them. But first, we go for a short break. I'll leave you with the markets update.
People ask me why business I am, and I normally tell them it's because of the numbers.
The deficit was 2.5 million, growing at 200,000 houses per year.
Is less than 1% of your turnover, then you pay 1% of your turnover.
To the GDP of the country, last week is 7.5%.
I mean, it has to be the numbers.
1.6, 1.7 trillion collection, I think it's a bit all of that.
40 to 50% of Kenyans are still using feature phones.
That only amounts to about 2.5% increase.
Numbers!
To around 3.4, which has further been reviewed downwards to around 1.9.
Which was to contribute to 24% of the GDP, now is expected to contribute about 18%.
Vision 2030 does have manufacturing at the center of its priorities. For 2020, the manufacturing sector is approaching the year with cautious optimism. There's a lot of opportunities for growth, but there are also challenges within the economy. There's low liquidity at the moment, so delayed payments from government to suppliers, and this is really slowing down the ability of the sector to grow. The competitiveness issue continues to become an issue and remain an issue in 2020, where we are saying that as a country we need to address competitiveness and deal with the challenges that are creating a gap between Kenya's competitiveness and global competitiveness. We've calculated this to be about 13% difference in terms of cost of competitiveness. So we are keen to address the issues of dealing with competitiveness and the regulatory burden that is currently within the country.
Managing your finances starts with questions. Where do I put my money? What opportunities are available for my money? What ratios should go into savings, spending, and leisure, if you may? Now, trying to answer all these questions can sometimes mean you have to understand concepts like savings, loans, forex, stock markets, and sometimes politics, and honestly, sometimes it can get a bit overwhelming.
On Eye on the Money, we take you through intelligent investment and finance management decisions so that you keep track of every coin that comes out of your pocket.
If you haven't made a choice to invest into this industry, I would like to encourage you to make a step and invest, because the film industry is one of those sectors that if you invest, for example, $1 would give you a return of $6. I believe you cannot be able to get that kind of return in any other kind of investment. And for key decision makers, let us strive and continue putting in place measures that will be able to catalyze or act as a catalyst to grow this particular sector, because the screens industry today across the world serves as a key game changer when it comes to economic growth, social well-being of the people, and also just providing an avenue for coexistence among communities. And from where I sit, The future is so bright. Think about gaming, think about esports. These are new emerging areas that if we did invest into, then we'll be able to create an abundance of opportunities to our communities, our youngsters, and also tell stories that have never been told before. Let's put Kenya on the map by telling our stories.
Welcome back. You are watching Business Center right here on Metropol TV, and today we are talking about organic matter and its importance in soil. But first, our question of the day today is, does organic matter have any effects on the soil color? Does organic matter have any effects on the soil color? Continue sending us your comments on all our digital platforms. We are live, and explain to us and just tell us where you are watching us from. Let's get right into this segment. Now we have our guest here, Bernard Ndungu, who is the General Manager for Fadhili Africa. He is here to just explain to us more about this and the importance of this in soil, the importance of organic matter in soil. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mr. Kevin.
Okay, thank you so much for coming. So let's just jump into this. What is organic matter?
So organic matter is a material that come from living organisms, mainly from plants and also from animals that have decomposed and got into the soil to form part of the soil. Mm-hmm. Generally, for healthy soil, that quantity will range between 3% to 6% for a normal soil for crop production. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And let me just ask, what's the difference between, do you have any difference between organic material and organic matter?
When we talk about the organic material, it's everything else. Mm-hmm. But when now we get into what is useful for the soil, that's when we talk about that material that has decomposed well enough and is in the process of releasing nutrients that are now available for crops for their uptake and growth.
Yeah. And now, what are some of the benefits of this organic matter in soil?
Organic matter is very important, especially for crop growth, because it plays a number of critical roles when it is there. Number one, it acts, it releases, when it decomposes completely, it releases nutrients that will be uptaken by the crop, and this is where we follow now. For those who are doing organic farming, that's where they get the source of the nutrients that they use to grow the crop. Number two, organic matter enables the soil to be able to store moisture in the soil for a longer period of time. What you normally realize is that soil that doesn't have the organic matter gets hardy, releases water very fast. But organic matter improves on that. Number three, it helps in growing other microorganisms and sustaining other even living organisms, such as the earthworms and the eelworms that burrow in the soil, and they are able to keep that soil moving and allowing air to move around within the soil. The other, number four, it improves the soil structure, and that's why you don't get soil getting compacted too fast. Yes.
Now, you've spoken about improving the soil structure. How can a farmer make sure they improve and they maintain the soil organic matter levels?
What the practice is on the ground is that the farmers generally, they remove the waste material from the farm and they carry it away. What we encourage the farmers is that this material should be allowed to decompose in the farm, or if they have to use it as feeds for the animals, then the manure is allowed to decompose and put back into the farm, and then it is incorporated during the tillage process into the soils that we have. Yeah.
And now, you as Fadhili Africa, how do you come into this process now?
How we come into the process is that we specialize in soil testing, and one of the parameters that we report to the farmer is on the level of organic matter in their soil. And we also do educate the farmers. We take through them through the reports that we have generated. We have the instant soil testing machines that we are able to give the farmers feedback within 10 to 15 minutes. They'll be able to get the report, get to understand the level of organic matter in the soil, and also we take them through the process of decomposition so that they can understand, they can prepare the manure in reference to what is actually lacking, and that will enable them improve the soil structure in their farms.
And now this organic matter in the soil, this machine that you've come with, is it the one that is used to test the organic matter in the soil?
This machine, and when we do a soil sample from the farmers, we do give the farmers a package of a number of things. And number one, as we talked last week, is that we report on the soil pH, that the acidity or alkalinity of the soil. Number two, we report to the farmer on the level of organic matter. We also record the nitrogen, the potassium, the phosphorus, and the cation exchange capacity. So it's one of them, and it gives the farmer a package of what is there. And then this machine enables us to be able to report to the farmer a crop-specific rate of application of all these nutrients. So yes, it will help us to be able to assist the farmer determine how much and what level of organic matter they need to add into the soils.
And can we have like, can you hold it and then we see how it is it placed in the soil, or how do you do it?
How we do it when a farmer comes to us with a sample, or when the farmers have invited for us to sample for them, we generally take a sample. There is a standard method, regardless of whichever method of analysis you use, there's a standard method that we take the sample. And when we come with the sample, then we do have a thoroughly mixed sample. We put it in our soil cup. This one is where we put the soil. And then after putting the soil, we take our machine, which we generally first calibrate it, using the soil cup. It uses the near infrared light, which is a beam of light that is released by this equipment. And then from there, it also has cameras all out. It has probes that measure the electroconductivity of the soil. And then after that, that information is sent to an application that we have on our phone, and that application then sends this data to our database, and within 5 minutes we should be able to have a report for the farmer and be able to advise the farmer regarding the level of nutrients that are in the soil, and also the corrective actions that they are supposed to take. And if there are farmers who are using the inorganic fertilizers, then we'll also be able to advise them the quantity of fertilizers and specific fertilizers, depending with the different breeds, that they can be able to use and improve the soil fertility in line with the crop that they are growing. Yeah.
So this machine tests the soil pH, it tests the organic matter, it tests the nutrients in the soil and everything else, right?
That's true. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for coming with this. I guess we'll have to do some bit of demonstration next time when you come, of course, and then so that we can see how it translates into giving the farmer the right information in order to know what the soil is contained, what is contained in the soil, right?
That's true.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, let us go into the manure, the compost manure and the farmyard manure. Explain to us a little bit about this. What's the difference between the compost and the farmyard?
So the farmyard manure, this is manure that we get directly from the cow shed or the other animals that we have. But when we come to the compost manure, is whereby we take the manure through a process of decomposition. We can add other materials. And one of the major difference between the two is that you will realize that you have some solid particles when you come to the farmyard manure. But compost manure is well decomposed, much more looks like the soil, and it is easier and faster to release the elements that are needed by the crop from the manure itself. So this is the major difference. It's the decomposition process that is taken through. Now, when we come to compost manure, and especially for the farmers who are doing organic farming, they are able to enrich using different source materials so that that manure meets specific requirement for the crop that the farmer is growing.
And you've spoken about farmers who are doing organic farming. How does, when someone has the best type of soil, they've taken care of the organic matter in the soil, how does this now translate to the production and the yields to a farmer?
Yeah, what we know is that when you have the correct crop variety and you're able to take good pest and disease management, then nutrition kicks in. And nutrition takes about 60% of the farm productivity. And nutrition is about availing the right nutrients at the right time. Because what I normally say to the farmers is, a crop follows its own cycle. And you need to supply the nutrients at the right stage. For instance, crops like maize require 60% of their phosphorus supply within the first 60 days. You miss that, then you also lose in terms of crop production, and the yield will be less. So the supply of the nutrients should be at the right time, so that you can be able to get maximum output per unit area of your farm.
Okay. And is there anything like too much organic matter in soil, really?
Not really. You should be happy when it is in higher quantities, because you'll have more supply of nutrients. And manure also acts as a buffer, remember. It also acts like a buffer. It does not, resists acidification process or alkalinity process, and then it supplies your nutrients at the right time. Decomposition process is good, microorganisms are there in the soil, and so I will not talk about too much supply. What you need is to supply it and mix it sufficiently with the soil, not just at the surface area.
Okay, and now for farmers who participate in crop production, where can they get their manure from? The best advice?
So one of the best sources is the materials that they already have harvested, because part of the biomass. And then number two is what you're getting from farmyard. And also then you can also be able to take material from other sources, whether it's from the forest, you can come and do the decomposition and then supply to the farm. And then, as we know, most of our farmers, they are getting manure from the farmers, animal farmers who do nomadism, the Masairad and our areas where farmers are getting cows in a large area, in large quantities. So those are some of the sources that farmers can get manure. Yes.
And can someone say, go to the dustbin and pick the everything that has been thrown there and say, now I'm going to take this to my shamba?
Two things. From the dustbin, as far as the organic material, there are other processes that such material can be taken through. Even the papers, they can be taken through a decomposition process. Though we need to be very cautious of the carbon ratios, because when it is too much, then it affects the availability of nutrients in the soil. Processes where this material from the dustbin, as long as it does not have the other chemicals that may be harmful to the soil, then it can be taken through a decomposition process and taken back to our farm. And actually this is one of the process, and especially for the solid waste handling in most of the towns, which we need to start thinking how to put it into place and be able to take through a process of decomposition, and it will form a very good manure for our farms, and even can be enriched to form organic manure, organic fertilizers that can be used in place of, instead of using inorganic fertilizers in our farms.
Yeah. So whatever we throw in the trash is kind of, you're saying it's kind of important in our gardens, right?
That's right. We need to educate ourselves, and it's an issue of discipline, is to separate. For instance, we know there are those materials that decompose and there are materials that do not decompose. Separate the plastics, separate the metallic material, and put the solid matter together, solid organic matter. Then it can be decomposed through different processes and be good for use in our farms.
Yes. And this manure, once it's placed in the soil, how does it affect the pH now?
As I had pointed out, manure is very good in buffering. And buffering means it is resist pushing the soil into acidic area or basic area. So it is able to resist movement of the pH level, and it absorbs, slows down the process of acidification or alkalinization of the soil. So it's very, very important, and will help the soil be able to remain within the productive area or productive pH for most of the crops.
All right. Yeah. And how often should we apply manure? And also, how long does it stay in the soil for it to be reapplied if we are applying it again?
Yeah. The manure, depending with the source material, it will take a different period. For instance, if you have source material as part of the legumes, legumes decompose very, very fast, because they also have a low number of carbon-nitrogen ratios. But when you come to other materials, they can take long. They can take 6 months, others can take up to even longer period of time, 1 year or more than 1 year, depending with the carbon ratios. So depending with the source material, it will indicate how long it can stay in the soil before it decomposes and releases the element fully to the soil for crop to uptake them. Yes.
All right. And as a farmer, can you apply manure and then also use fertilizer?
Yes. You can apply manure. And this is a process where manure needs to be applied continuously. And what I normally tell the farmer is, if you look at our forest, they are always green. They are always having moisture because they have a higher content of manure ratios. But when you come to inorganic fertilizers, these are fertilizers that we buy from the agrovets and other industrial produced fertilizers. They are a quick fix process of availing the nutrients at the shortest time possible. So for the process of decomposition or preparing your manure, then it's a slower process. But when you come to fertilizers, it's a quicker, it's a faster way of availing the nutrient for the crops. Yes.
So you can add fertilizer also, you can use also fertilizer?
Yes. Actually, within our reports, because what we look at is making it beating time. You're actually beating time. We recommend to you the manure, at least the minimum quantity that you should add in your farm, and then we also recommend to you the fertilizers that you are going to use. And we also factor in place that the manure will take a longer period of time, so it will leave your soil in a better position than you found it, or by, from the day that you did your soil analysis, then you get the nutrients available for the crop as fast as possible, or as and when they are needed. Yes.
All right, as we now wrap up this, is there any better time to apply manure? Or the same way you apply it in January is the same way you will apply it in December, like the whole year?
What we recommend is that this is part of preparation for your farm. So you need to do your preparation during the tillage or the land preparation. That is the best time. And then you can add at different intervals depending with the kind of crop that you have. But the best time to apply the manure is during land preparation processes. Yes.
All right. And now, as Fadhili Africa, what else can you advise a farmer who wants now to start planting and maybe they don't have a way of getting the manure? What would you advise them to do?
If farmers do not have a way of getting manure, what we like or what we tell the farmer is that to start planning in advance, because organic matter that is there and is generally available can be put together, can be decomposed, and then be availed for the crop. You cannot, or when you tend to skip application of manure, then there are other consequences that you lose to your farm. And these, most of the time, are negative. And that's why you see, in areas where farmers have been dependent fully on fertilizers, then their productivity capacity has been declining because you are actually not supplying this material at the right time. Or you have to put other more investment, especially in terms of irrigation, so that you can put back water that has already evaporated. So putting manure is an important stage for any person who is doing crop production. Yes.
All right, thank you so much. We have to wrap up this, but this was so interesting and informative. Thank you so much for coming to the show, Mr. Bernard.
Thank you very much, Bwana Kevin. I'm here to talk to Kenyans, advise them, so that we can be able to become a country that is food sufficient.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That has been Bernard Ndongo, who is the General Manager for Daily Africa. I believe you have learned a lot about how to take care of your soil and the organic matter in the soil and how you can enrich it in order to make sure you have good yields. We're going for a short break, but remember we are coming back with agro-commodities, innovations and agri-facts. And by then we will have already finished this. But first we go for a short break. We'll be right back. Our question of the day, remember, is does organic matter have any effect on soil color? Remember to continue contributing this. We'll read some of your comments as we continue with the show. But first we are going for a short break. We'll be right back with innovations and agro-commodities and agri-facts.
I would like to take this opportunity to sympathize with the families that have already been affected, the individuals, and also take this opportunity to thank the effort of our government under the leadership of His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta. Especially I would like to thank the Minister for Health and his team for the effort being done day and night to contain the existing problems. I request all of us to adhere to what Allah is saying and at the same time also the guidelines given.
Two means you have two midfielders, central, okay? And then you have your central defender, one against one.
We are here today to see through a refresher course for CAF. This course was initially done in 2017, but the certification was not done because at CAF the curriculum changed and the system of joining a course changed. The new system required that people apply online, which they did not do when they were doing the initial course. For a long time, there has been a pending issue and of certificates not given. It has been a very hot issue. It has been complaints. There has been complaints all along, but we are happy that today we are able to sit down with these coaches, get through the refresher as per the new curriculum, and get their certifications immediately after completion of the course. I remember twice we've been with the president to CAF technical department seeking their certificates, but it has taken a long time. The president has pushed for it. I was with him twice in Cairo, but at long last it's now happening. And we are happy that the complaint and the misunderstanding and the dissatisfaction is now done with, because they are going to get their certificates and now they can look forward to doing the next class, which is class B. And coaching education has never been there in Kenya. Proper coaching education has never been had. But in the last 6 years, we have done so many coaches training and other technical trainings for those who are handling football. I'm happy that this thing is going to be a continuous process, and as the chairman technical had said, we are going to have B classes, 2 B classes every year. And that will give us an opportunity, because the CAF requirement for a coach for certain levels also change and they are different. So we are happy that we are in a place that now we can move with the rest of the associations with the educated coaches, with the right certifications, and the only thing that I'll want to emphasize that we need to get more ladies coming to train as coaches, going through and coming up, because we have a problem when it comes to women coaches in this country. So we need to urge more ladies to come up. We need to talk to our elected officials and those former players to come and train as coaches and get this certification so that they can be useful in the football market.
Welcome back. This is Business Center and we are continuing with the show, and to our question of the day, we had asked you, does organic matter affect does organic matter have any effect on soil color? We have some answers here. Naomi from Udhiru anasema answer is yes. I guess it makes the soil light in color. Am I right? All right, just stick around. You'll find this answer at the end of the show. But first, we move to agro commodities for today. We are looking at dry white maize, oranges, nyayo beans, white Irish potatoes, cabbages and tomatoes. We are having 6 commodities, and then we are going to look at these 6 commodities in Garissa, Kakamega, Kiambu, Machakos. Now we're going to look at dry white maize per 90 kg. If you look at all those areas, we have Kiambu in Wangige, which is 2,799, which is the most economical of all those areas. And then when we move to oranges per 93 kgs, if we look at all those areas, in Garissa is where we have 3,255, which is more economical if you compare it with Kakamega and Machakos. And then we move to Nyayo beans per 90 kgs. If we look at Machakos in Athi River, it's 7,650. It is the most economical if we compare it with Garissa. No, if we compare it with Kakamega, but also Garissa is much more cheaper at 6,998. So therefore Garissa is more economical. And then we move to white Irish potatoes per 50 kgs. And then we have in Kiambu, Wangige area at 1,500. And then we move to cabbages per 126 kgs. Now there's a big comparison here. In Garissa is 10,800. And then in Kakamega is 1,890. Therefore, Kakamega in Mali area is 1,890. And then we move to our last commodity, tomatoes per 64 kgs. In Machakos, Athi River is 3,520. This is more economical. Now we move to our innovation sector for today. Food security is one of the greatest global challenges of the 21st century. We're going to also continue moving to our innovations to our 21st century. The global population grew to 7 billion in 2009 and is expected to reach over 9 billion by 2050. It is imperative that innovation research in soil science will be fundamental in overcoming the growing threat of global food and fuel crop shortages as the world's population continues to increase. Now, today we shall focus on some of the innovations used to improve the soil. But first, our first is plant cover crops. We move to plant cover crops. But first, our question of the day: does organic matter have any effect on soil color? Does organic matter have any effect on soil color? We are going to read some of the comments. We have Odhiambo wa Githurai anasema answer ni yes. Kevin, thank you so much, Odhiambo from Githurai. Now we move to our first innovations, which is cover crops. Cover crops are an excellent addition to your soil improvement program. They can provide organic matter and nutrients, improve drainage and aeration, attract beneficial soil organisms, and act as an overwintering mulch. While cover crops can be grown in rotation with other crops at any time throughout the year, they are most popularly used during a sunny period. And then you are going to move to mulch for big benefits. Mulching encourages healthy soil tilth by retaining moisture and nutrients. It also saves time by reducing the need for weeding, watering, and fertilizing. How you mulch your garden beds depends on your climate. For example, heavier mulches are beneficial in hot, dry climates where moisture evaporation is high. In contrast, lighter mulches are more appropriate in cool, rainy climates where soil benefits from the warmth of the sun but still need protection against erosion. After a pest outbreak, however, discard affected plant material and avoid using mulches during the rainy period so as to avoid providing protection to overwhelming pests. I'm also going to move to organic matter in soil. Now, organic matter consists of plant and animal material that is in the process of decomposing. When it has fully decomposed, it is called humus. This humus is important for soil structure because it holds individual mineral particles together in clusters. It also helps soil hold important plant nutrients. You can increase the organic matter in your garden or farm by adding compost or applying mulch. Application of organic matter to the soil adds carbon, which promotes the growth of beneficial bacteria, which increases the likelihood of hearty plant. Amending the soil is important for good yields. Now, our last innovation is grow, chop, and drop nutrient. Now, nutrient accumulators are plant species that are often integrated into permaculture gardens. The roots of accumulators are said to collect specific nutrients from the soil. These potentially nutrient-rich plants can be chopped back several times throughout the year in order to use the cuttings as a mulch. This may save money by reducing the number of soil amendments you need to purchase. Growing them may also improve biodiversity. Although there hasn't been a lot of research conducted on nutrient accumulators, comfrey is the most often cited plant. Comfrey is a shrub that grows in parts of Europe, Asia, and North America. It can grow up to 5 feet tall. It produces clusters of purple, blue, and white flowers, and it's famous for its long, slender leaves and black-skinned roots. Studies suggest that one can use comfrey as an organic DIY fertilizer spray. Now, those are our innovations for today. We're also going to remember our question of the day today. I hope you remember it. Does organic matter affect in soil color? Now we have Agatha kutoka Westland says the answer is yes. It makes it more dark, especially when the soil is really healthy. Now that is Agatha kutoka Westlands. Thank you so much. We move to our agri-facts. Manures improve the fertility of the soil by adding organic matter and nutrients by allowing nitrogen to be trapped by bacteria in the soil. There are two natural methods of manures, one of them being organic substances which are obtained from dead plants and animal wastes. On today's Agri-Facts, we shall be looking at the different types of manure. Now, our first agri-fact is green manure. Green manure is a term used to describe specific plant or crop varieties that are grown and turned into the soil to improve its overall quality. A green manure crop can be cut and then plowed into the soil or simply left in the ground for an extended period prior to tilling garden areas. They are grown and plowed into the soil while still green. Now, some of the green manure crops are legumes, ryegrass, fenugreek, etc. Now, to improve the facility of soil, we're also going to look at farmyard manure. Farmyard manure refers to the decomposed mixture of dung and urine of farm animals along with litter and leftover material from roughage and fodder fed to the cattle. There isn't an involved process to prepare farmyard manure. All you have to do is collect the cow dung and urine into a layer of even thickness under a simple roof to keep it from getting excessively wet and exposed to pure sunlight. More dung and urine are added along with some water if it gets too dry. Farmyard manure is a rich organic compost ideal for use all around the garden. It breaks down naturally in the soil, releasing nutrients as well as providing a rich natural source of organic matter and humus, essential for the development of healthy plants and fruits and vegetables. Now, our agri-facts also, we look at compost manure. Compost is a mixture of organic residues, that is manure, animal carcasses, straw that have been piled, mixed and moistened to undergo high heat of 113 to 160 60 degrees. How do you make your pot composting manure? First, segregate your household waste into dry and wet in your kitchen. Then separate the two wastes into two different containers. Then add dry leaves to the same quantity as the waste and semi-compost material, buttermilk or cow dung to start with the decomposition process. That's our agri-facts for today. Our question of the day is, does organic matter affect the soil color? Does organic matter affect the soil color? We have some answers here. We have Nyambura from Embakasi says the answer is yes, it gets darker. And then we have Terence Waruiru says yes, it gets darker. Now, organic matter tends to make the soil color darker. Yes, humus, the final stage of organic matter breakdown is black. Throughout the stages of organic matter breakdown, the color imparted to the soil varies from brown to black. There you have it. That is your answer. Yes, it turns the color. That has been our question of the day today, and the answers, you've seen them from the people who contributed to our question of the day today. Thank you so much. That's it for Agribusiness today. My name is Kelvin Nyakundi from the rest of the team here at Metropol TV who made this a success. Thank you so much for joining us.